Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Underworld Ascendant Circus, a feast for the senses. Come right in and commit felony arson, then commit even more arson. Whatever, just burn this bitch to the ground. Welcome to Two-Headed Hero. My name is Bawss Sawss. I'll be your resident indie release ringmaster, and today I'll be taking the temperature of a brand new title, the much anticipated follow-up to Ultima Underworld 1 and 2, Underworld Ascendant. To be honest, I've been following this game ever since its announcement 4 years ago. Full disclaimer, Underworld Ascendant is shaping up to be a pretty lengthy and involved game. I haven't finished it yet, and in this state, I'm not sure if I can. So consider this to be more of an impressions video designed to show you the game's broader strokes. Don't get me wrong, it's not all negatives, and there's still some fun core gameplay, but there's still a ton of problems. Let's answer the most important question. Is it worth buying right now? A little bit of background. Underworld Ascendant was announced in July of 2014 and successfully kickstarted back in 2015. Myself, I was one of those kickstarters. Having been burned by half-baked crowdfunding campaigns before, I optimistically plonked down a small chunk of change in order to get a key at release. Underworld Ascendant is being developed by Otherside Entertainment, a small company stocked with series veterans like Paul Neurath and Warren Spector. The big names behind the game did much to build my confidence, and there was, and still is, a large amount of open communication between the team and the gamers that support it. Underworld Ascendant claims to be the sequel for the much beloved Ultima Underworld series, and the influences here are clear. You can check out my rundown of Ultima Underworld 1 and 2 on the channel here, links at the top right. From the start, players take on the title of Ascendant and are thrust into a dark underground realm, the Stygian Abyss. The goal? Defeating Typhon, a powerful god with an army of undead.
I am the father of monsters. I will leave this prison, and the universe will burn.
Come one, come all, see the wondrous city of Markal. Stare in awe at the sight of this really big tree. Visit the Saurian fortune tellers and get a glance at your future. I hate to admit it, but Underworld Ascendant looked simply awful when I first booted up the game. After puzzling around for a minute, I figured out that the game defaulted me to very low detail settings. Bumping this up to 1080p Ultra made quite a difference, of course. Still, some of the more detailed areas tended to temporarily tank my frame rate, and I did experience the occasional hitching. Visually, Underworld Ascendant is a game that tries to play to its strengths with a particular art style. The focus lies more on bold, detailed characters, and wow, I've got to say these characters and enemy designs are really cool. The environments themselves focus on effective use of colors and a heavy contrast between light and shadow rather than realism. This works pretty well to a point, but the game looks dated. This is most apparent in the Ascendant's hand animations, but there were also several spots with broken geometry and strange drawing bugs. Things that make me go, Hear the chilling tales of the Stygian Abyss. Take in the tantalizing tunes of Underworld's long past. Withstand terrifying threats from Typhon, father of monsters.
Who are you to oppose me?
Converse with magical bipedal lizards. The audio is a mixed bag as well. Voice lines can sometimes bounce between sounding far away or directly in your ear hole. There were a few audio stutters when levels were loading, and strange discrepancies involved the proximity of enemies and items in the world. Underworld Ascendant's soundtrack is awesome when it's there. A really great, creepy rework of the old Ultima Underworld exploration theme graces the title screen. I loved it. I just recently completed both of the old games, so this really pumped me up to get into this one. It seems that the rest of the soundtrack is mostly relegated to understated atmospheric tracks during gameplay. On the flip side, the voice acting is quite good overall. The ghost of Kabyrus and the booming voice of Typhon are both pretty convincing and suitably atmospheric.
Typhon, father of monsters, nemesis of Zeus, threatens to break free the ancient bonds that have imprisoned him for millennia.
Your allies, the Saurians, are also voiced pretty well, but man oh man, the lip syncing on the lizard people is laughable.
So we shall aid your development. The factions spare little trust for outsiders.
Take a chance, throw the mystical rune stones and see what effects await. Slink through the shadows and tiptoe through thrilling traps. Play tag with spooktacular skeletons. After all that, need to relax? Well, you can bathe in the luminescent pools of the Stygian abyss. For my gaming dollar, I can easily overlook some rough edges. The game has plenty, but for the moment I'm going to focus on the core gameplay. Underworld Ascendant claims to be a successor to Ultima Underworld 1 and 2. To be sure, the aesthetics and references to the old games are here. The silver sapling once again functions as your respawn point. The runic magic system returns in a more streamlined form. Old locations and characters resurface here. However, the core gameplay in Underworld Ascendant is much, much closer to a later looking Glass Studios series, Thief. Not the awful 2014 reboot, that can heck off. A closer look reveals a ton of Thief series hallmarks. Water arrows and stealth are really important. Treasures and hidden objects are found throughout the missions. One-on-one combat is difficult, but survivable. Being outnumbered is usually lethal. Like Thief, Underworld Ascendant goes for a mission-based structure, with Markal as its central hub, abandoning the open world of the game's predecessors. These missions themselves are intertwined loops dotted with points of interest in enemies, a design that also calls back to the Thief series. First-person movement in Underworld Ascendant is somewhat unpolished. I found myself getting caught up on stairs and small objects occasionally. Vaulting over ledges and fences seems to work pretty well, but there's no accompanying animation for this. Swimming is a big problem. The Ascendant moves slowly in the water, and it's really hard to get out in places where it seems like this should be simple, like slopes or stairs. Overall, the sensation of movement in Underworld Ascendant feels as if your face is lurching a little bit ahead before the rest of your body catches up. Whoa! Physics needs some tuning here. You can chuck small objects with relative ease, but dragging around crates and barrels is a little wonky. Whipping a bottle of acid at an enemy, dropping a chandelier on their heads, or tossing a torch at a wooden barrier and watching it go up in smoke is pretty satisfying though. The game makes a serial arsonist out of the Ascendant from the get-go, and using the environment as a weapon is actually a lot of fun. Combat itself takes the form of magic, ranged, and melee. You can choose to bushwhack enemies with sneak attacks fairly easily, and using the bow or offensive magic is straightforward. The melee is a simple paper rock scissors kind of situation with a quick attack, strong attack, and a block. I believe it works like this. Blocks interrupt quick attacks interrupt strong attacks break blocks but are easy to dodge. This generally feels pretty simple and consistent. I really like the way that a single enemy can feel like a challenge, and Underworld Ascendant goes out of its way to encourage players against direct confrontation. Stealth, trickery, and avoidance are the best policies here, and creativity in dispatching your foes is highly rewarded, giving you additional feats to cash in. Progression-wise, there's a lot of options. The skill tree is deep. Unlike the game's predecessors, it seems you can make nearly any character build into a useful one. Instead of experience points, progression is gained by completing feats. These challenges require mixing up your tactics and creative problem solving. This is further tied into the story as well, which I thought was a really cool touch.
The Memoriam is a repository of great knowledge. Magically recorded survival tactics of heroes of the past. Perform a feat, and I will trade its memory for fresh skills.
Oh, great. What do you have back there that I can exchange for the memory of running away like a frightened baby man? Okay. How about my memory of tactical pants wetting?
Humans.
So far, I've mostly been toying with the magic system, which is further constrained by having to treasure hunt for runes. There doesn't seem to be a quick way to restore mana. Instead, it's found as floating blue pickups. Wands with pre-made spells are also scattered around the environments, but these too use your mana stores. Magic is kind of a pain, and this is one of the few times that I felt that a mana regeneration system, or maybe plentiful mana restoring consumables, would have been a better fit. Supplementing your magic skills with bow, stealth, or melee is a pretty good idea. In a callback to the first two games, the runes can be experimented with to discover new spells. Unfortunately, the spellbook seems bugged at the time of this writing. Spells that I've discovered all disappear upon loading a save. Combos that I've discovered but are too inexperienced to cast can't be saved at all. This means it's back to manually writing down the rune combinations in a notebook until this is addressed. A pretty minor bug, but a bug nonetheless. Unfortunately, this bug is just Underworld Ascendant's tip of the iceberg.
Feast your eyes on the amazing disappearing columns. Gaze in wonder at the torch of levitation. Bust a move with the skeleton dance troupe. Or become hopelessly entrapped within the chains of utter chaos.
Bugs. Okay, there's just no way around it. Underworld Ascendant feels like it came out of the oven way too soon. I ran into so many bugs and glitches after the initial tutorial levels that I swear I was playing an early access game, and since it has all the big industry veteran names attached, it feels fairly disappointing. There is a huge amount of rough edges and broken level geometry here. Characters get stuck on walls and other terrain features quite often, and then they do a little dance about it. Some of the enemies would be easy pickings when they're confused like this, while others would be incredibly and inexplicably lethal. The physics sometimes launches objects or the Ascendant several feet into the air for no apparent reason. I once got stuck on a chain so badly that I had to reload a previous save, so I guess climbing chains doesn't quite work yet. Speaking of the save system, it makes entirely no sense. You can save at any time, but loading a save starts you right back at the beginning of the level, no matter what. You keep any objects that you found, but then these objects also respawn in that level. So you can effectively duplicate any items you find. And everything else, including enemies and traps, is reset? Why? Wouldn't it make sense to just save anywhere or have a checkpoint system? Or have the silver sapling be your checkpoint system? I mean, it's already there as a respawn point you can pick up and place. Why not just have an autosave system tied to the sapling? For a game that was marketed as a follow-up to the grandfather of immersive sims, Underworld Ascendant sure breaks my immersion often.
Still care to risk your hard-earned dollars in the Stygian abyss? Well, beware, believers. Beware.
While the core concept in Underworld Ascendant is promising, gamers are going to want to wait until Otherside irons out the bugs. Setting the environments ablaze or charming a creepy mind beast into killing your enemies is incredibly satisfying, and the exploration and puzzle elements here are on par with what the Underworld series has always been about. I have high hopes for Underworld Ascendant once it's fixed. The amount of potential in this title is astounding. It just really needs some tender loving care before I would consider a buy. If there's one thing I hate to do, it's dunk on a game, but there's just too many problems here to overlook. For perspective, my girlfriend asked me if this was a student project during my play session. That's not something you want to hear from a supposedly fully featured and finished title that's slated to come out later on consoles. It's a shame, but I have to say that Underworld Ascendant is a letdown, a classic case of overpromise and underdeliver. Unless Otherside does something timely and major to fix everything here, players are going to be extremely gun-shy about any attempts to crowdfund their reported next game. A sequel to one of my personal favorite titles, and to another classic property from the echelons of PC gaming history. System Shock 3. Until then, anyone anticipating Underworld Ascendant should be prepared to wait on it a while, or enjoy the carnival of craziness that constitutes its current form. Once again, my name is Bawss Sawss, and we'll see you on the next Two-Headed Hero.